Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I wasn't in the best of moods when I finished putting my tools in the pickup truck at the end of the day on Thursday. The client I'd been working with for the previous 2 weeks didn't seem to know what he wanted. He asked me to make one change after another to the original plan of the staircase that I was supposed to build. The last request made this morning was so extensive that I had to dismantle about half of the work I had already done. On top of that, I had to go back to the architect and engineer, because the last whim couldn't be fulfilled without redrawing the structural plans. So the next day will be an unplanned weekend. My name is Garrett Morrison. I am the main artist and owner of a small woodworking and carpentry workshop specializing in the design and construction of high-end stairs. My clients are wealthy owners of mansions, hotels, restaurants, and offices who can afford to pay more than $50,000 for an exclusive staircase made of a work of art. I just turned 34 and was married for 4 years to 29-year-old Daphne Tupper. Daphne was a young and successful lawyer at a law firm specializing in commercial law and intellectual property law. We haven't had children yet, mainly because Daphne wanted to build her career first. I was surprised to see my wife's car in the driveway when I got home at 4:30 p.m. Daphne usually worked late on Thursday nights to finish work at an acceptable time on Friday. I entered the house through the back door, as I did every time I returned from the construction site. I have equipped a small bathroom with a shower next to the door so that I can shower and change first thing after entering the house and not spread dust all over the house. The water pressure was lower than usual. Was my wife in the shower upstairs? It was strange because Daphne usually took a shower either in the morning or just before going to bed. I finished quickly, put on my house clothes, and went upstairs to see what my wife was doing at home that early Thursday afternoon. As I guessed, Daphne had just come out of the shower and was now wearing black fishnet stockings, and there was a brand new black dress waiting on the bed. "Hey, honey, what are you doing here so early? Or did I forget something? Do we have something today that I didn't remember?" She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. She looked a little nervous, but she seemed to be doing her best not to show it. She sighed. "No, Garrett, you don't forget anything. I'm going outside tonight." "That's not so. In fact, I'll be out until Sunday afternoon. I'm going to spend the weekend with Derek Kramer." "What are you doing? What are you talking about? Is this a business trip or something?" "No, it's not a business trip, Garrett. Derek has a hotel room reserved for him and me. I'll be yours again next week, but I'll spend this weekend with him." She looked at me defiantly, but her whole speech sounded rehearsed. "No, it's not like that. I don't want my wife to spend the weekend with another man." "Well, you better accept it, Garrett, because that's what Derek wants. And I suggest you don't mess with him," she said with a chuckle. "Oh, I see. Are you a happy part of this plan? Do you want me to accept it and let you go? That you'll be my faithful wife after this weekend?" I asked with dripping sarcasm. "I never said it would only be this weekend. Derek has already told me that he would like to do this from time to time. So yeah, suck it up and don't say a word. Knowing Derek, your life will be much easier if you shut up and follow the program. That remains to be seen. I'm not going to put up with this, Daphne. You better think about what you're doing, because I'm not going to let this arrogant bastard run my life. If you think I'm a pawn that you can move as you see fit without me saying a word about it, you're in for an unpleasant surprise, I'm telling you." By that time, she was already preparing for the evening. I went downstairs and got a beer out of the fridge. I saw a Mercedes that was just parked in front of the house. Mr. Smug got out himself, went to the front door and rang the bell. "Garrett, this is Derek. Will you come and open the door?" she shouted upstairs. I quickly punched the code into the back door alarm panel, then set up my mobile phone for video recording and put it in my t-shirt pocket so that it would film everything that was happening. Then I waited in the living room. I've known Derek Kramer since the day Daphne started working at SVN 3 years ago. I first met him at a Christmas party in their office. He was a man in his 40s with a very dominant personality. He seemed very friendly with his fellow partners, flirtatious and smooth with his female employees and the wives of his male employees. But in the presence of his male employees and the husbands of his female employees, his entire demeanor radiated arrogance and contempt. I instantly felt a dislike for this guy. Daphne ran down the stairs in a rage. She went to open the door. I watched this scene from the living room, drinking beer. "I'm so sorry you had to wait, Derek. I do not know where my husband's manners are," she said with an obsequious look. She lowered her voice to say something else to the asswipe, but I couldn't figure it out from where I was. "Hey, Dusty boy, I was told that you have a problem with Daphne coming with me for the weekend?" he thundered, like a school principal addressing a young child when he came into the living room to talk to me. I couldn't believe how brazen this guy was. He was so busy with himself that he thought he was the boss of my own house. "Hey, get the hell out of my house or I'll call the police," I said, clenching my fists. He laughed. Daphne was grinning next to him. "And what do you think the police will do?" "The answer is nothing. They won't do anything. Do you know why? Because, hey, are you filming me?" He just saw my cell phone. He snatched it out and tried to stop the recording, but it was locked with a password. He threw it on the ceramic floor. Of course, ceramics won the match. "Listen to me, smartass. Your wife is coming with me this weekend, whether you like it or not, and she will spend time with me whenever I want. And no, a lumberjack like you has no say in this matter, okay? And if you do anything to get in my way, you're going to suffer. Hell will be a resort compared to your life. So you're going to stay here quietly this weekend and shut up. If I hear that you're upsetting Daphne or threatening to divorce her, or that you're doing something even more stupid like trying to contact my wife, then everyone will know about the questionable money laundering deals that you've done. I decided to play the fool. It is extremely unlikely that people will find out about this. Considering that I have never been involved in money laundering, I answered automatically. Oh, it's easy to arrange, you know. Uploading material to a computer is a simple task, you know. I have a lot of things that can ruin your reputation in the blink of an eye. I decided that this was a good reason to play even stupider. If you can download something to my computer, does that mean you already have illegal materials? I asked naively. That's the difference between you and me. Some things that are illegal to you are perfectly acceptable to powerful people like me who have the right connections. So I strongly recommend that you keep playing with the working class and not bother the best people, you know? I could hardly believe what I had just heard. It would be a bit overkill even in a comedy film, but this guy here in my living room was serious. Oh, one more thing. Don't think about getting back at me or Daphne. See that I'm not a bad guy? The point is, if you go beyond what's allowed, I'll find out. Okay, now come on, darling. They returned to the front door. Daphne grabbed her bag and left. She didn't say goodbye or even look at me. He said to my wife, "Darling." The whole situation was so unearthly that I couldn't even be openly angry. My feelings were more of a mixture of anger and amazement. It was at this moment that I blessed the robber who broke into my house a year before I met Daphne. I was so upset that I installed a complete surveillance and alarm system with motion-activated cameras and voice-controlled microphones that could record everything that was happening in the house and store it in the cloud. I never showed Daphne that the system could be put into recording mode while we were in the house, so she couldn't have known that I activated it before she opened the front door to let the slimy slug in. Then I activated the recording on my mobile phone. In fact, it was more like a decoy. I was more or less counting on Kramer to see it and find a way to turn it off. This would weaken his vigilance, and then he would speak more freely, thinking that he was no longer being filmed. I was hoping that this might be a good way to gather useful material for a likely divorce. The cell phone that was now lying all over the floor was actually my work cell phone. After I started working with a richer clientele, I quickly realized that if I gave them my main mobile phone, I would work almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because some of these people are like children. When they want something, they want it now. In their opinion, there was no bad time for them to call you, even after 23 o'clock and on weekends. The dedicated mobile phone for work could be turned off at the end of the day, and the next morning I could receive messages. So at least I wasn't left without a means of communication. I took my personal phone and called my business lawyer and Harry's best friend. Harry Davenport married my older sister Jennifer 10 years ago. They were a perfectly happy couple until tragedy struck. They had been married for 4 years when Jennifer, traveling with 3 of her friends to Guadeloupe, got caught in a wave and drowned. My parents and I loved Harry, and even after his sister's death, he always remained a member of our family. He met another woman 3 years after Jennifer's death. Kristen is a fantastic woman whom he married after a year of dating. My parents and I, along with Daphne, were invited to the wedding. To this day, Harry and Kristen are like brother and sister to me. "Harry, I need your help!" I screamed when he answered. I started explaining the situation to him. I repeated the threats that Kramer had made before going with my wife on their private weekend. Harry understood these threats. "Okay, don't leave the house. Don't call anyone. Don't answer the phone. And don't open the door to anyone you don't know. And turn off the computer. Christina and I will be there in an hour. We'll bring dinner. I wiped away the remnants of my work cell phone, got another beer, and sat in the living room, trying to calm down after the events of the previous hour. I knew Daphne was attracted to Dickhead, or rather, she was seduced by the aura of power he displayed. But I never thought that she could throw me away like some useless trash and walk away with it. I thought she loved me as much as I loved her. It was a loud alarm bell. I met Daphne 5 years ago, at a birthday party hosted by a friend of a friend. I don't even remember how I ended up there that night. I didn't know more than 1 or 2 people. The birthday boy was the best friend of Daphne's brother, who couldn't even be there himself because he served in the army and was sent to Afghanistan. As a result, I chatted with Daphne all evening. We started dating a week later and got married a year later. I was still working for Mr. Duncan at the time. Craig Duncan was the founder of his small company. He was an excellent carpenter, well known in our area. But his accounting and management skills were practically non-existent. He hired me as a part-time accountant to do accounting when I was still in college. A couple of months after I started working for him, he signed 3 major contracts that were too heavy for the time he had to invest. But his clients didn't take no for an answer. So he asked me to step in and help him in the field. I started by being an assistant, running errands, ordering supplies, and keeping long things that he had to work with. But I learned quickly, and it turned out that I had a real talent for this job, so after a few months of training, I could handle simple jobs on my own, or be a real assistant in more complex jobs. I got a degree in accounting, but because I really enjoyed practical work, I also started my studies and received a certificate a few years later. I soon became Mr. Duncan's partner, and when he retired, my parents helped me by providing money so that I could buy him out within 2 years. I was well aware that the SVN lawyers considered me an uneducated employee of a dusty store, a small shop, a cheap store, etc., and did not have a very high opinion of me, but I didn't care. My company was doing very well. I didn't participate in many projects, but the ones I took on were complex and very profitable. I had hired 2 assistants in the previous months, and my net income and cost were higher than most of the lawyers who worked with my wife, but even she didn't know that detail. My train of thought was interrupted by Christina and Harry, who brought Chinese takeout and some beer. "Are you all right, Garrett?" Christina asked, hugging me with one of her warm hugs. "I can't believe Daphne would do this to you. It's so unlike her." Harry hugged me like a man. "Don't worry, buddy, we'll fix it. Let's have dinner and then I'll watch your recording." I told them in detail about Daphne's cold reception when I returned home that day. After dinner, I took out my laptop and took out the files with 2 recordings from the camera and microphone. Fortunately, the conversations were crystal clear. "I can't believe what I just heard," Harry said. "Pretty arrogant bastard, huh?" "No, it's a pretty stupid injection," Harry replied. "What's this guy like, 40, 42 years old? This means that he had to practice law for about 15 years. So he's not a rookie, but he's so busy with himself that sometimes it doesn't occur to him that he should just shut up. Seriously, your idea of tricking him into thinking he wasn't recording anymore after he destroyed your cell phone was very, very smart. He completely fell for the bait and told us everything we needed to know." "Okay, but can I use it if it was recorded without his consent?" I asked. "Of course. This is your home. You're free to record whatever you want in your house," Harry assured me. "So I have nothing to be afraid of. Is that what you want to say?" I asked. "No, that's not what I'm talking about. We have to be extremely careful. I did a little research on the way here. Chris was kind enough to get behind the wheel and take care of the takeaway. It turns out that our guy Kramer is the son of the founder of their law firm." "You already knew about this, didn't you?" Harry explained. I nodded. "Perhaps you don't know that his father, Marvin Kramer, had a good reputation. He wasn't a very good lawyer, but most of the judges in the area were his former college friends. Since he knew everyone personally, it was easy for him to win most of his cases. Unfortunately, his son Derek was an exemplary student of his father's teachings. That's what makes him dangerous. He has an extensive network of very friendly judges, and if he files a lawsuit, it will be extremely difficult to get a decision in our favor, no matter how illegal his machinations will be." "Wow. Are you saying that no matter what I do, I'm a fool?" "No, not necessarily. It will be difficult to win, but it is possible. I know people too, you know. The trick is to gather enough evidence to make a slam dunk case against him. I have a plan." But you're saying that the judges will always rule in his favor? I asked. Unless the case goes to a criminal court. This is what we will try to do. We were interrupted by a knock on the front door. A little brunette was standing on the porch. Hello, Mr. Morrison? She asked. Oh, hi, Laura, come in, Harry asked, standing behind me. Garrett, this is Laura Foster. Laura works as a computer specialist at the private detective firm we work with. I took the liberty of contacting her after I hung up the phone tonight. We briefly explained the situation to Laura and asked her to watch our conversation on tape, especially the part where Kramer threatened to upload compromising materials to my computer. Laura watched the action carefully and then explained the game plan. Well, there are two things they can do. Either they come here during the day, perhaps with the help of your wife, and then sit down at your computer and download their shit after they change the date to make it look like the material was uploaded before Kramer's visit. If they do, your camera system will record everything. Just make sure you leave it in recording mode before you leave for work in the morning. She took out a small gray box from her bag. Another thing they can do is get remote access to your computer to do their monkey business. I'm going to install this module in front of your modem so that we can record who is trying to access your router and what it is trying to download or download. Take a few minutes to transfer all your personal or confidential data and files to a flash drive and delete everything on your computer. The idea is to prevent them from accessing it. I will help you with this, if only to make sure that there is no hidden data that you leave on the computer unknowingly, explained Laura. She seemed to really know her stuff. Harry intervened. You see, Garrett, right now the only thing you have is a record to sue him for blackmail. Your case will be closed before you have time to explain it, because in public opinion this is not a very serious crime, and the judges he knows will probably support him. So the best thing that could have happened is that Kramer uploaded illegal materials to your computer and informed the police that he had evidence that you were in possession of illegal materials. Then we'll have a trail showing that everything was done without you sitting in front of the computer. With the advance warning that Kramer gave us and that you recorded, we will have enough material to take revenge on him with a serious case in criminal court. At the moment, none of his judicial friends will want to look like they're condoning criminal activity, so they'll dump him. It's painful and perverse, I said. Yes, but so is Kramer. And the last thing, will you be able to do without a computer in the next few days? If Kramer carries out his plan and reports you, police inspectors will want to check computer records to see if someone actually accessed the illegal files after they were uploaded. If you don't touch it, then the records will be clean and it will be even better for us. Also, make sure your mobile phone doesn't connect to your home Wi-Fi network in the coming days, in case they try to use your phone instead of a computer. Laura installed a surveillance module and erased all confidential information, including my company's documents, from my computer and mobile phone. The module will send us copies of all access requests. I'll contact you and Harry as soon as we have something. Good luck, guys, Laura told us before leaving. Okay, let's get back to more mundane things, Harry said. Garrett, do you want to file for divorce right now, or do you want to wait until Daphne gets back to see if this can be sorted out? No, I want to get a divorce if possible. There's no way I can stay married to someone who's just as easily manipulated. No, I want to leave, without hesitation. Good. I'll call Claudia Milton tomorrow. She's a family law expert in my office. It is good, fair, and effective. I'll ask her to call you as soon as possible. You'll like her, Harry said. We talked a little more. I gave Harry the access code to my recording system so that he could see what was happening, and access what was stored in the cloud. Kristen and Harry left around 23 o'clock. I drank the Zopicon and left half an hour later. The next day at 8:30, Claudia Milton called me. She just hung up with Harry, who explained to me all the details of my predicament. She was waiting for me in her office at 11 o'clock. The meeting with her went well. She knew about Derek Kramer's reputation and was very sorry for me that I had to cross paths with this man with a dubious reputation. She assured me that since I had bought the house before I met Daphne, and that her name was not on the document, the house remained mine. We didn't have any children, so a divorce would be very simple. What about my company? Is there any way they could get me to sell it and split the money? I asked. Claudia called Harry and asked him to join us. It didn't take Harry long to calm everyone down. Don't worry about it. There is a clause in your prenuptial agreement that clearly indicates that your company belongs to you, and that she cannot claim it. Although they'll probably try anyway, but I've double-checked everything, and it's a dead end for them if they want to go there. I left Claudia Milton's office at 12:30 and took care of all financial matters, as she instructed me. She told me that there was nothing more I could do, that she was taking responsibility for everything, and that Daphne would be served at her office on Monday morning. I also went to the store to replace my broken cell phone and spent the rest of the weekend working in the yard and watching my favorite TV series. Part of me was angry at Daphne, but the other part was still in denial, still unable to fully believe what was happening. I knew that I would eventually mourn my marriage, but at that moment, I was still too excited to be sad. I didn't expect Daphne to come home on Sunday. I was hesitating whether to sleep in the guest room or send her to the guest room. There's no way I'm sleeping with her anymore. In the end, I decided that this was my home and that she had left me, so there was no way I would give up my bed. She slept in the guest room until she found an apartment and moved out. I took all her clothes and toiletries to the guest room, then went to the hardware store to get a new lockable door handle and install it on my bedroom door, keeping the key in my pocket. When I heard a car approaching the next evening, I switched the surveillance system to recording mode. I saw Daphne kiss her boss in French and then get out of the car and wave at him as he drove away. I was reading in the living room when she came in. "Hi, darling, how was your weekend?" she asked. She seemed nervous. She tried her best not to show it, but I could tell she wasn't as cool as she pretended to be. I didn't even look at her, let alone answer her. "Okay, keep sulking and sulking. Derek was right when he said you'd do this, that you didn't have the brains to understand my needs, or the maturity to accept your inability to meet them." She went upstairs. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. "Garrett Morrison! What's it? Did you install a lock in our bedroom?" "Correction, in my bedroom," I replied calmly. "All your belongings are in the guest bedroom. You'll sleep there until you find an apartment." "Wait until I tell Derek about this. That wasn't the point." "A deal? What's the matter? I didn't sign or even accept anything from your jerk. Either you sleep in the guest room or you leave. Maybe Kramer's wife will make room for you in her marital bed?" She looked at me sideways. She didn't say a word, stormed into the guest room and slammed the door. I went upstairs and shouted to her through the door. "Speaking of the deal, what was there for me?" She didn't answer. I went upstairs. It took 15 minutes before my phone started buzzing. It was a series of text messages from a number I didn't recognize. "What do I hear, Cook? Are you not letting Daphne into her own bedroom?" It seemed to me that I explained the program to you in plain English. Even a shop monkey like you can figure it out. "Listen, I'm going to close my eyes to your childhood crisis tonight and let you cool off. But tomorrow you will cook Daphne her favorite dinner and apologize to her for your behavior. If you behave yourself for the rest of the week, I'll let her make love to you next weekend. But if you don't do as I say, you'll find out that my threats are real, very real. Therefore, you will do as I told you and ask no questions. Is that clear?" I couldn't believe my eyes. This guy was at the intersection between callous, delusional, and stupid. I didn't reply, but I took a picture of the conversation and sent a picture to Harry. Harry replied 3 minutes later. "Unbelievable. This guy thinks he's a tough guy, but he's just a world-class idiot. Don't erase the conversation and don't answer him." Kramer sent a couple more confirmation requests, which I did not respond to. Eventually, he stopped. I didn't see Daphne again that evening. I went to bed, locking the door and leaving the recording system on. I wrote to one of my assistants to tell him that I would be late the next day. I waited until Daphne left in the morning before getting up and getting ready. I made myself breakfast and ate it, downloading what my system recorded overnight. Daphne hadn't left the guest room until this morning. She took a shower in the guest bathroom and left without having breakfast. But I was surprised that she didn't try to do anything with my computer, as I expected. I received a message from Claudia Milton. "Hi, Garrett. I just wanted to confirm that the divorce papers will be served at 10 o'clock this morning. I told Harry about it too. Have a nice day, no matter what." Before heading to the store, I checked again that my home system was still recording, and whether it would send an alert to my phone if it was activated. I was supposed to meet with the architect at 11 o'clock to discuss the latest changes that my current client requested. I was doing some little things before the meeting. I was expecting a call from Daphne a few minutes after she was served, but nothing came. At 10:45, I texted Harry that I was surprised that Daphne hadn't tried to contact me. That means she talked to Kramer about the divorce papers. They might as well be working on their threats already. "I'll call Laura. Stay in touch," Harry replied. My meeting went well. Surprisingly, I was able to keep my concentration. I spent the rest of the day fixing my tools and putting the workshop in order. It was 3:12 p.m. when I received an alarm on my cell phone. I texted Harry that the show is on its way. He sent the message with a thumbs up. I connected to my system and was able to see and hear what was happening in my house live. Daphne came in with a man I didn't know. They came to our house and turned on my computer. They didn't talk much. It took the guy a few minutes to crack my password, and then he inserted a USB stick into my computer and spent a good 10 minutes doing his dirty business. It's good that I was able to get clear pictures of his face. Daphne went to the guest room and packed her things in garbage bags. Her suitcases were in the closet in the master bedroom, poor thing. When the guy finished, he turned off the computer and told Daphne that he was leaving. Daphne finished packing and left the house at 3:56 p.m. Harry called me a few seconds after the recording stopped. "Okay, Garrett, now go home and act like you always do. I assume they will call the police tonight or tomorrow to have an inspector visit you. It takes a few hours to get a search warrant, so you can expect to meet them tomorrow." "Are they going to arrest me?" I asked. "It's possible, but if you get arrested, you won't say anything. You won't answer any of their questions. I've already contacted my good friend, Stephen Lindsay. He's a criminal defense lawyer. I took the liberty to give him all the relevant material, including the recordings. He says it's going to be the easiest case this year," replied Harry. I gave Harry a code to turn on/off the recording in my alarm system in case I was arrested. We chatted a little more and then hung up. When I was driving home, I was almost in the basket, tired and dazed. Nothing happened that night. No police visits, no one is calling from Daphne, no nasty text messages from asshole Kramer. I made myself a sandwich and ate in front of the TV. I debated with myself whether to call my parents to tell them about the situation, but in the end decided it was better to wait until the storm was over. I'm not sure if my mom understands anything about tampering with computer system files or videos stored in the cloud. It would just make her worry that it was in vain, and she would not be able to bring any added value to the situation. The next day, I was at the store when I received another warning that someone was in the house. I liked it the day before. I sent Harry a message and connected to my system. The police broke into my house and tried to turn off the alarm. They must have shut down the system because I lost the connection. Harry texted me that he saw everything and gave the pictures to Stephen Lindsay. About an hour after the police arrived at my house, 2 other police officers showed up at my store and arrested me. They handcuffed me and put me in a police car. They quickly read me my rights and started asking me questions that I refused to answer. When I arrived at the police station, my cell phone and wallet were taken from me, and I was put in a cell with 5 other guys. There are not many views. Everyone tried to focus on the floor tiles. About 3 hours later, a security guard came and took me to the meeting room, where I was supposed to meet with my lawyer. "What the fuck?" I said to the guard. "I haven't even told you who my lawyer is." The guy didn't say anything. He left me alone in the room. 10 minutes later, the door opened and Derek Kramer appeared on the threshold with a grin. He sat in front of me without saying a word. I looked into his eyes and said nothing. After he was convinced that he had fully established his superiority and made it clear that he was winning the war, he gave me a triumphant look and finally spoke. "Now do you see how serious I am?" I didn't answer. "I asked you a question. Answer me." I was silent. "It will be your word against mine, Morrison. The carpenter's word is against the word of one of the most famous lawyers in the city. Guess what's going to happen?" "What is it?" he asked with his eternal grin. He stood up. "Okay, it looks like you need to think about what I told you a little more. Then we'll talk again tomorrow morning. Maybe a night in this shared cell with friends will bring you to your senses," he said before leaving the room. I was returned to my cell. By that time, there were only 4 other guys. Another guy came to me in the middle of the day. I was brought to the same meeting room. A tall blonde man with a stern face was waiting there. The "don't mess with me" expression. He stood up when I came in. "Good afternoon, Garrett. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Stephen Lindsay. You can call me Stephen. Harry called me this afternoon and said he couldn't get in touch with you. Considering everything that is happening, we decided that they may have already arrested you and brought you here." I told Stephen about everything that happened that day, including Derek Kramer's threatening visit. Stephen's jaw dropped, but he didn't say anything. "Okay, tomorrow morning you have to appear before the judge. The judge will, of course, issue a serious warning, but don't worry. Harry will take care of everything. I know it's going to be an anxious night, but don't lose hope. Harry and I are here for you. In the meantime, keep doing a good job without answering any of their questions. I've already officially taken over your case, and I'll make sure Kramer doesn't visit you anymore." The next day I appeared before the judge. Of course, I did not plead guilty. The bail was set at $25,000. I was released on the same day. I couldn't leave the city limits, and I couldn't contact my ex-wife, Derek Kramer, or anyone from their office, and I was forbidden to be alone in the presence of anyone under the age of 18. But at least I could work in my workshop. My mobile phone and wallet were returned to me. Stephen invited me to a late lunch and we chatted a little more. Yesterday, I didn't want to talk too much at the police station because they have ears on the walls. But yesterday I made some calls and did a little research, and I managed to find quite a lot of interesting material about our friend Derek Kramer. Let me tell you a few things that will calm you down. First, when police officers receive a search warrant, it takes at least several hours before they can review the materials found and obtain an arrest warrant. In your case, you were brought here before they finished searching your house. Secondly, you weren't allowed to call either Harry or me, but they let Derek Kramer see you. These two elements make it obvious that all this was staged, and this is completely illegal. Yes, but Harry says Kramer has all the judges wrapped around his finger. I said, Oh no, not all. You see, you can't make that many friends without making enemies, he said with a wink. I have no idea what I'll find at home. I hope my loving wife and her asshole didn't steal everything. Don't worry about it. Harry went to your house right after the police left. He armed the system again and put it back on the record. No one came. I went back to the store to pick up my car, and then went home to take a well-deserved and necessary shower. The architect left a message saying that they had updated the plan and received the approval of the customer. That was good news. This meant that the next day, I could go back to work and do something else. The house was in a mess. They searched everything. Other than a fake computer, I knew they wouldn't be able to find anything incriminating. I started to put everything in order. That night I cried for the first time. Just a week ago, I was a happy man in what I thought was a good marriage. Now I was suspected of a crime, about to get divorced, and my wife's boss was playing with me. What have I done to deserve all this? At least I didn't see any reporters. I guess they were too busy biting into the recently discovered multi-billion-dollar unexplained hole in the public finances to take care of little Garrett. At the end of the following week, Stephen finally called me with a big surprise. All charges against me were dropped, and it seemed that the inspector who was assigned the case was not the kind of guy to mess with, especially on the subject of blackmail. Apparently, he was not very impressed with Kramer's ploy, and made sure that charges of blackmail and fabrication of evidence were soon brought against Derek Kramer. Daphne will be charged with conspiracy to commit these crimes. Harry called me 10 minutes after I hung up with Stephen to invite me to dinner that evening. On the way home to Harry's, Claudia Milton, my family law attorney, called me. Garrett, Daphne's lawyer, called me this afternoon and said she was ready to sign the divorce papers unchanged, but on one condition. She wants an hour-long face-to-face meeting with you. She says it could be in my office. Daphne was probably the last person I wanted to see, but I told myself that if this meeting could speed up the divorce, then it would be a good investment of time. I told Claudia to keep going, that I was going to meet Daphne. I had a nice evening with Harry and Christina. It was the first truly relaxing evening in 2 weeks. Christina cooked coconut shrimp and rice. That evening, when I returned home, I felt calm. The meeting with Daphne was scheduled for next Wednesday. I was nervous about meeting her, although I had no reason to be nervous since I was the victim in this pathetic conspiracy. When I got there, I was directed to Claudia's office, who asked me to come a few minutes earlier so she could talk to me. Garrett, I do not know what she wants to tell you, but I must warn you. Criminal charges have been filed against her. Do not give her any ammunition. Do not say anything that can be used to discredit you if you are required to testify in court. We have no right to search her for microphones or recording devices, so keep in mind that she can record you. Okay, thanks for the warning, I said. I was taken to a small room for private meetings. Daphne was already there. I expected to see the bitchy and arrogant Daphne of the previous weeks, but Daphne, who was sitting in this room, was a broken woman. I felt a wave of compassion for her, but the vivid memory of her little act with Kramer before leaving for the weekend quickly dissolved all the positive feelings I could have for her. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Garrett. What do you want to tell me, Daphne, after everything you've done to me? She began to cry. Garrett, I'm so ashamed of what I did to you. You're a wonderful husband. You don't deserve this. I was completely under the spell of Derek Kramer. When I heard that the charges against you had been dropped and that he and I were probably going to stand trial, It gave me a shock that broke the spell. I can hardly look at myself in the mirror. For the next 30 minutes, she continued to analyze her own behavior. She didn't interrogate me or try to get any information from me. I know we're done here, Garrett. If I were you, I would do the same and file for divorce. So no, I don't blame you for divorcing me. I want to say that I quit my job. I told Derek Kramer that I never wanted to talk to him again. I went back to my parents. I told them everything. They're mad at me. The atmosphere in the house is far from warm and cozy. I looked at her without saying anything. To be honest, there was nothing reasonable about all this. She had made the bed and now had to sleep in it. The next few months, maybe even years, will be hard for me, Garrett. I do not know what life has in store for me. The only thing I hope for is that in a few years, when everything is said and done, I will have a chance to at least make friends with you. It's far away, Daphne. Very far away. We'll see when we get there. Good luck. I got up and left the room. There was a part of me that still loved her, but there was no way I could be with her again. I dreamed of taking revenge on her, but events made her an unhappy woman. She had learned something, and there was no need for further revenge. The epilogue. Daphne was able to make a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation with the authorities against Derek Kramer. She moved to another city. I've lost touch with her ever since. When the charges against Kramer were made public, 2 other men stood up and filed a blackmail complaint against him. As a result, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Since the police had recordings of all my conversations with him, I was not even required to testify. After Kramer was found guilty, I filed a civil lawsuit against him and his firm, or what was left of it. I managed to get $2 million, of which Harry got a fair percentage. I pretended to be outraged, but it was all fun. Harry was so helpful that I was glad to give him the money he deserved. My company is doing very well. I'm in the final stage of negotiations to acquire a specialized door manufacturer. It will be a nice addition to what we're doing. Now I have 6 employees, and they are like a second family. I was invited to a barbecue party hosted by Harry and Kristen a few days after my divorce was official. I've never met Christina's younger sister before. Katie and I instantly found a common language. To this day, we have been dating for several weeks. Let's see where life takes us.